Welcome back to another video. As you know, in these videos we talk about self-improvement, finance, health and fitness and dieting, spirituality, including my own faith, Christianity, and TRP concepts, which also kind of lead you into the bigger red pill picture, which is what I'm about to show you guys right now. If you like this kind of stuff, please consider hitting that subscribe button and that like button so we can game the YouTube algorithm, which suppresses content like this. So, I was on Thedonald.win, and if you don't know about Thedonald.win, it is essentially the same community from Reddit that was banned from Reddit, because Reddit has become so converged by neo-leftists as well as Chinese money and influence that they literally killed the greatest subreddit they ever had in terms of population. I mean, they were basically suppressing the numbers. It supposedly had over 6 million plus subscribers. It was the Donald, which was a subreddit dedicated to promoting and being supportive of the 45th president of the United States. Literally, there's nowhere else on the internet that is solely devoted to his support. I mean, you could have supporting websites for every other president because they were part of some kind of evil cabal, but as you know, Trump, the great God Emperor and destructor of the evil cabal, they could not allow that. So they eventually destroyed the subreddit, and the community leaders created a new, entirely new website called Thedonald.win. Definitely check it out. But I saw this post, and I have to say, I don't know where it comes from. It's probably cut and paste from something, but I really wanted to go over it point by point, because this is exactly what is happening in the West. Whether you live in America, Canada, North America, if you live in Europe, you're seeing this too. Where it's not happening, China. Typically not happening in... It's happening in Russia, though the Russian government knows about this attack on their civilization and is doing what they can to prevent it. Same with the Chinese government. They are aware of how to stop this kind of stuff. But let's talk about it point by point. How to destroy a civilization. Stage 1. Moral decay. Encouragement. Normalization of all forms of hedonism. Excessive drugs, alcohol, junk food, porn, promiscuity, etc. Excessive drugs. Check. Look at all the people on your city streets who are addicted to heroin and have basically lost their minds. Look at all the people drinking alcohol. Alcohol is promoted. There are commercials for it. Your friends are drinking beer every Sunday while they sit in front of a TV and watch other people play sports. Look at the major junk food use in the West, particularly the United States. It is pitiful. If there was a war today, the United States would not be able to draft enough actual able-bodied soldiers, because 2/3 of the men and people in this country are fat. 1/3 being obese. So you have 1/3 obese, which is over 25% body fat, which, I mean, that's basically like 240 plus pounds for a 6-foot man, or 230 pounds for a 6-foot man. If you're shorter than that, like 215, 200 pounds, you're obese. Not just overweight, but obese, morbidly obese, and you're on your way to dying. The other third is just overweight, like, okay, you need to get it under control. And the other third is actually normal and underweight, low body fat levels. And usually these people are very aware at this point of how to stay that way. And I'll tell you, as someone who is in shape, it is nice, I guess, that the more time goes on and the longer I stay in shape, the less and less other people are in shape. You guys are just making me look better. It's sad for my entire country, but for me, selfishly, you guys are making me look better. Stop eating so much junk food. We'll talk about dieting in another video. I did a huge video on this a few days back. I think it's the most popular video I have in my channel so far, at nearly 2,000 views. But porn, this is one of the worst things ever. And it seems to actually relate a little bit to promiscuity, which comes next. But porn, oh my goodness. They have given men a way to hack the sexual outlet that they need, which prevents them or demotivates them to actually seek a relationship with a woman and an eventual family. You want to know my theory? Is that porn has a direct effect on our low birth rates in the West. I'm not going to go too deep into porn. My previous video covers it. Promiscuity, though, is another big thing. As a Christian, it's sinful. And my goodness, am I a sinner, guys? I am not trying to say I'm perfect. But promiscuity is bad news. Basically, that means sleeping with multiple partners, going from girlfriend to girlfriend, or having 5 or 6 women that you're seeing in a rotation. It's bad. It's not good for society. It's not good for those women either. We were supposed to be married at a young age, have multiple babies by the time we're in our mid-20s. We have such low birth rates in the West. It's not going to be good. I can't even begin to imagine how bad the 21st century is going to be for America. My predictions are that America will not even exist in the next 15 to 20 years based on the political landscape, and that you will instead have balkanization, which, quite frankly, at this point, I'm all for. What I mean by that is America will fragment into several countries with completely different values. You are going to see communist nations, but you're also going to see very religious conservative nations appear in what is called North America today. The real danger, though, is that some of these countries are going to side with America's worst enemies, and we're going to see foreign troops on this land. Anyway, that is the first bullet point. The second bullet point, spreading of solipsistic and nihilistic philosophies. Actually, I don't know what solipsistic means. Solipsism is the philosophical idea that only one's mind is sure to exist. I'll say this is basically atheism. They're talking about spreading the idea of atheist philosophies. And yes, it doesn't bode well, because all atheists eventually start decaying in their moral values, and then their kids end up doing really bad things. Like, look at it today. Most kids today are brought up as atheists or brought up by atheist parents. And, well, I should say where I live, and look what's happening to them. They're turning into transgenders. They're chopping their body parts off. They're dyeing their hair all sorts of weird colors and acting in such weird ways that were totally not normal even 20 years ago. That's what this kind of stuff promotes. Spreading of moral relativity. Yeah, right. Everything can be argued to fall under the gray area, right? So, like, killing is good for someone else, like all that weird stuff, right? This stuff is very much promoted in college. And colleges seem to be heavily influenced by the government of China, as we are seeing that a ton of professors are getting arrested in the last couple of years for getting paid by China or selling secrets to China. It's called treason, and they should be executed. And like destruction of traditional institutions, marriage, religion. Yep, exactly. You're promoting atheism, which then in turn destroys marriage. Men don't want to get married for the most part. Because they know the risks. They have seen their father or their friend's father get absolutely reamed in a divorce court, and now that they're looking at that man who is a broken shell because he is literally paying 60% of all his income to another woman who he hasn't been in a relationship with for 15 years. He's paying child support. In America, you can be jailed for missing a child support payment. It is very, very risky. That being said, if you can find the right person who doesn't exhibit any of the above, that's a unicorn, and you probably do want to marry them, and you can live in God's way. But for the rest of us, it is scary, and it is a super, super risk. Let's go to point 2, demoralization. The shaming or ostracization of those who uphold traditional values. So going back to that other previous point, you're destroying marriage, you're destroying religion, but now you're shaming people. And we see this all the time in America. Who are the biggest enemies of the left? It's the Christians. There are so many articles that blame Christians for everything. Lately, because of this whole lockdown, people were blaming churchgoers for spreading the you-know-what. Like, it's always been an attack on Christianity, and you know it's obvious because when a certain other religion who is known to commit more actual acts of violence and murder does it, the news media here in America never ever says who they are and what religion they follow. They're very careful to keep those details a secret, but as soon as they say it's a Christian, as soon as they know it's a Christian, they're very happy to say, oh, look what that bad Christian did. Christians are bad. And I'll never forget that time. In fact, let's just Google it. I think it was last year in 2019 or maybe in 2018, there was a major bomb explosion in Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken, where on Easter, like 300 or 400 Christians were murdered in an explosion. And what happened was on Twitter, let me see if I can find it, all the politicians on the left basically said, we feel so sorry for the Easter worshipers who died. They couldn't even bring themselves to use the word Christian. Easter worshipers is an insult. You're basically saying that these people worship Easter. No, we do not. We worship Jesus Christ, and one of our major holidays is Easter, on his resurrection. But these people, and this is why I honestly think they have to be tied to Satan or some really demonic, nefarious forces, because they couldn't say the word Christians. Yeah, go look up their Twitters. Let me see if I can find the images. Yep. The attacks on tourist and Easter worshippers. Here's the meme. This is what I was looking for. How do we zoom in on that? I'll try to zoom in through the video. I'm not good at the video features, but if you can move your screen, all these people use the term Easter worshipers. It's like I think I know that they're on some kind of Democrat conference call where they all agree not to use the word Christian. It's a very blatant attack on our traditional values. These points are really good. This is going to be a long video, guys. I am sorry if it's too long. Another thing, the attack on our traditional cultural traditions, on our culture's traditions. So like, you can't celebrate Thanksgiving now without offending a leftist because they say this is a celebration of the genocide against the Native Americans. You can't celebrate Christmas, and if you do, just know that it's not really a Christian holiday. It's a Viking holiday. It's pagan. Sure. Christmas is a melding of the Nordic Yule log and German Christmas. Big deal. So what? The Norwegians became Christians. The Swedish people became Christians. It's not a big deal that their pagan holiday became a Christian holiday. So what? We're allowed to celebrate it and be prideful in it. People like to remember the war on Christmas. Remember how you used to not be able to say Merry Christmas in America a few years back? And ever since the election of the God Emperor, everyone started saying Merry Christmas again, and it was wonderful. And I always say it whenever I can. I really try to avoid this term, Happy Holidays, but that's what they're talking about here. Focus primarily or exclusively on negative aspects of history. Exactly. So in America, we are still supposed to feel really bad about slavery. Never mind the fact that most people in America today are immigrants, including white immigrants from Europe that came way after slavery. Our Democrats here, our politicians keep talking about reparations, which is a tax they're going to impose on white people and literally redistribute the wealth to people of color. It makes absolutely no sense, especially when it's been almost 200 years and most white people in America can't trace their roots back to the slave times of the United States. But they always like to think and make us think that slavery only happened in the U.S. Newsflash, slavery happened for over 1,000 years in the Arabian Peninsula and in the North African parts of the world, and it is still happening today. The Arab slave trade is still in existence. When Obama toppled, what is his name? Muammar Gaddafi? I can't remember his first name. Muammar Gaddafi. When he was toppled, his nation started going into slave mode, and now Africans are literally being sold on the open slave markets in Libya today. But America does nothing about it. Europe does nothing about it. No one talks about it, but it is a fact that slavery is still happening. Black slavery is still happening today. They like to make us think that we should feel guilty from our past, which is something that they can't do. I am incredibly proud to be of European descent, Roman descent, Nordic descent, British and Celtic descent. When I did my ancestry, which I probably should not have done, but I gave my DNA to a company, I'm super proud of the roots I have because these are the best cultures in the world. I don't care what they did. These are the best cultures in the world. Which is what I'm getting into here, apparently. Downplay or ignore positive aspects of your own history. The fact that America and European capitalist countries have led more people out of poverty than anything else in the world. Seriously. Do you think America is so evil that people are still trying to rush our border, jump over fences, or dig tunnels underground to come here? Or people are coming on planes and overstaying their visas and disappearing into the United States? That's how good this country is. But they don't want you to know that or think that. We're supposed to be evil. Yes, instill guilt and shame for having X heritage. Don't forget about your white privilege. If you're white, you're a bad person. Your ancestors were bad people. You're very evil for having that skin color of which you chose nothing about in your upbringing. You had no choice, but you are evil. Original sin from which you can never escape. They always love to guilt white people. And I've noticed the term colored, which was a term they used to call African Americans back in the day, is now become people of color. And this term is used to encompass every single race on the planet except white people. White people are the least popular group on the earth when you look at the actual statistics of population, and yet we're the number one enemy of the enemies of the West. Yeah, it's ludicrous. But yes, they're basically now using this term person of color to mean anyone who isn't white. And I see a lot of people who are not black or Latin jumping on this bandwagon, including Asians who have very light skin, who are very intelligent, and whose cultures resemble white culture closer than any others. But now they're jumping, a lot of them, especially in the liberal area I live in, are jumping in that person of color bandwagon. It's very weird. It's very divisive. They want to attack and confuse identity. People who don't have a real culture, gender, race is a social construct, biology doesn't exist. And yes, we see this everywhere, especially in the city I live in. These kids, these teenagers who are trying to explore other genders. Like, what are you doing? You are either a woman or a man. You cannot chop your part off and not have major regret. This is seriously weird, and it's very bad for our society. This stuff is basically illegal in China and Russia. They don't like this stuff. They nipped that in the bud because they knew how it would lead to the destruction of their civilization. Let's go to stage 3, demographic destruction. Normalization and encouragement of abortion, contraception, career women. Yep, because they want lower birth rates from the countries they don't like. So you got women who are working, who push having a kid till age 40, and then by then they might not even be able to have one. But all the babies they got pregnant with before that were aborted, murdered, and they even stopped themselves from having babies altogether because they want to spread their legs and feel pleasure. This is really, really bad stuff, and it is all because of the 1960s sexual revolution coupled with feminism. E. Michael Jones has talked about this. There's a lot of people that talk about this, but this is why the West suffers so bad. You got that low fertility, like I just talked about, small families. It used to be Americans, which were predominantly white, but other cultures too, had 3.2 kids per household with a white picket fence. Now it's like one kid, if that. If that. So what do? Well, we need more babies. So mass immigrations from nations with conflicting customs and values. Yep. Look at Europe. Europe is being invaded by people who say they're migrants or refugees, but they're really just coming because they know that they get money from these governments, because these governments are being tricked by the masters of the puppet strings to bring these people into their country. Look at how Germany and Sweden and France and England are all changing. You can't even talk about certain things because the police will arrest you. In England, it's hard. It's said now that in London you will not find an actual Englishman. Excuse me. Talking so much, I actually need a drink of water. Europe is collapsing. America and the southern border is having its own issues too from this. These immigrants, like I said, They don't focus on career. They focus on their religion and their families. So whether you're looking at the south parts of the United States or Europe, these immigrants are having way more children. And yes, I predict a major catastrophic war in Europe, if not outright Islamic conquest, because soon, maybe in about 15, 20 years, the original peoples of Europe will be outnumbered and outvoted by Arabs and people of the Islamic faith. You will see French and German and British and Swedish women of white and European backgrounds forced by law to wear the burqa. Saying it right now. Give it 10, 15, 20 years. And how do I know this? Because history is something you can look at and see. If you look at pictures of Iran or Afghanistan before their quote-unquote Islamic revolutions, women were free to wear what they wanted and show off their hair. Cannot do that anymore. You're going to see Europe impose laws like this. They're going to impose Sharia law as well. It's going to be a major thing. It's either going to happen or Europeans are going to fight it and there's going to be a war. And even by then, they might be outnumbered, and without major support of the other Western powers, they will fail at this. Discourage integration. We must be culturally inclusive, accepting of other cultures, even if that means giving up our own, which doesn't exist anyway. So yeah, you're basically told you are a racist, you're a bigot, you're a xenophobe, if you don't want people to pour over your southern border and burden your tax system. If you don't want people to burden your healthcare system from other countries. If you don't want people to invade and rape the women in your street. This means you're a bigot, and yeah, you have to be culturally inclusive or you're a bad person, which is totally false. And they discourage the integration. It's really weird. What is this quote? A person who lives by strong principles, who takes pride in their heritage, who has a strong sense of identity, and who has a firm moral basis is difficult, if not impossible, to demoralize. With moral decay comes low self-esteem and self-loathing at the subconscious level. Feeling inherently bad without a logical reason, which among other things makes demoralization not only extremely easy but contagious like a virus. Demographic destruction without war is only possible in a civilization that has been sufficiently demoralized and has essentially given up on fighting for its existence. At this point, the civilization has tied the noose around its own neck and is simply waiting for someone to come along and kick the chair on which it stands. Wow. This describes the West. We have basically been made to feel bad to the point of not caring about the continuing of our civilization. And that is just so sad. I like to think that I'm super happy, though, because at least I do take pride in my heritage. I do have a strong sense of identity, and I know what country my blood comes from. And I have a firm moral basis, which is difficult, if not impossible, to demoralize. You will never hear me feel guilty about my history. You will never make me feel guilty about the people who came before me, who built the best civilization this world has ever seen. You can't demoralize me, and I don't want them to demoralize you either. If they are getting to you, please, I hope you can share this video with someone else. This has all been an attack to destroy our country from within. How are you supposed to fight America anyway? How are you supposed to fight Western Europe or any NATO power? We're all protected by nuclear weapons, by the biggest military force in the world, the United States military and the NATO alliance. You can't fight that, so you have to infiltrate and attack from within by destroying the family, by demoralizing. And that is exactly what our enemies are doing. This has been a very long video. I hope it was super helpful. Have a great week ahead, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Hey, thank you so much for listening or watching the video today. I want to ask you, what kind of things do you want to hear about? You know what we really focus on in this channel? It's about men's education, right? The manly arts, finance, religion, and health and fitness. So if you got any questions around these topics or things that you think might be relatable or that I could bring any fact or opinion on, by all means drop a comment below, and feel free to email me at rightofpassage85@gmail.com. Thanks so much. Take care.